Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Nous sommes aujourd'hui à l'ÉCAL dans le cadre des Rencontres du 7e art. Alors aujourd'hui on va accueillir un acteur, il y a aussi un réalisateur depuis 2 ans. C'est un acteur qui est allemand-espagnol, qui a d'abord été connu dans Goodbye Lenin et ensuite qui a été connu dans de grands blockbusters américains. Il a plus d'une 50aine de films à son actif. Moi je suis un étudiant en scénario et je suis accompagné de 2 étudiants en première année, Hervé Aussin et Paul Barlet. Et je vous demandais de faire un tonnerre d'applaudissements pour Daniel Brühl.
Merci beaucoup. Merci. I have to say, when I came in, I thought the order of the masterclass is a bit unfortunate, because if I would have started, it would have been a crescendo for Willem Dafoe, and now I hope it's not a decline. At least you stayed. So thank you.
Je sais que vous parlez français. Est-ce que ça vous va si on pose les questions en français?
Oui, j'aimerais bien parler en français, mais il faut que j'ai fait une masterclass en français pour faire ça. Alors, je suis très désolé, mais je vais parler en anglais. Mais les questions en français, pas de problème.
Bien. Alors, j'ai commencé à vous poser une question. Alors, vous êtes face un peu à des étudiants en cinéma, et je voulais savoir comment vous vous sentez par rapport à ça. Est-ce que vous avez déjà donné comme ça une masterclass, ou est-ce que vous êtes vous-même passé par la case école?
Yes, I mean the last time and the only time I did a masterclass before was in last year in Odessa, which, you know, it sickens me to see what is happening a year later in Ukraine. It was very touching. It was packed with film students in Ukraine. And there was a lot of curiosity and a very, warm welcome. So I will never forget that. For me, actually, before Goodbye Lenin, it all started with film students. Because my very first films were the last films film students did to finish their studies. So they were their debut films. And as Willem mentioned before, the passion that you get from a director who does his debut is incredible because they want to make the best film in history. So there is that extreme passion and excitement. And I was lucky that these 2 films then really got a long life and had an interesting journey, and it, got me the first Deutscher Filmpreis, the German César. So it put me on the map, and the director of Goodbye Lenin had seen one of them and liked it so much that he proposed me. Oh no, he didn't propose me the role. I had to go to 14 auditions to get it, but at least he was interested in me. It was a nightmare. So that's, yeah.
Et à propos de ce premier film, justement, je pense que Hervé a une question à vous poser, c'est le film Das Weiße Rauschen.
Yeah.
Oui, donc c'était le film où vous avez gagné votre premier prix,
oui.
Le Max Orpheus. Et je voulais savoir peut-être comment vous avez préparé ce rôle. Vous étiez déjà au clair avec une certaine technique pour préparer un rôle, ou est-ce que vous étiez perdu à ce niveau-là?
Yeah, because my way into that whole world was different to Willem. So I grew up in a funny family with a German father, 2 German uncles, Hanno, Hein, Hartmut, and they all found their wives in a beautiful little village in Catalonia in Spain in the late 50s, where there were no German tourists, so they were quite exotic and were quite successful in finding their future wives. So my father married a Spanish woman called Marisa, and my 2 German uncles married Françoise et Françoise, Toulouse and Paris. And then they all moved I was also born in Barcelona, but then we all moved to Cologne. And then my father was working for German television as a documentary filmmaker mainly. And and had stopped working as an assistant director at the theater, where he was not happy, and started to make documentaries and then also fictional films. My uncle Hein was working for the radio, and he was the one who said to me when I was 8 years old, you read quite well. Don't you want to do radio plays? So I did, and it was great. I earned my first money, could buy my own bicycle, and did I don't know how many, hundreds of radio plays. So it was all about voice acting. It was all about the voice, but I enjoyed it a lot. So I kept on doing it. And then, you know, school theater, and then on some insignificant, unfortunately it was not New York in the 70s for me, it was Cologne, so I wasn't in a group like Willem Dafoe. So, but I enjoyed it. But then very quickly, I think it was because of my dad and his passion for film that I really wanted to do films. And I didn't know whether acting or script writing or directing. So, I remember that I got my first VHS player when I was 15, and I had that long list of my father's recommendations. So I got all these films, and I tried, unlike Willem, at first to do some facial expressions in front of the mirror. I wanted to do the Belmondo and try to look as cool as Marcello, and Alain Delon. Didn't work out, but these were the films. I mean, Rocco and his brothers, and the Truffaut films, and the Sicas, also the great Spanish director Berlanga. These classic movies were the trigger, along with the first cinematic experience that I had when I was 12, and I went to see Lawrence of Arabia, 70 millimeter, with my father in an old cinema that doesn't exist anymore. And then also pushed by the films at the time that came out, Pulp Fiction, Festen, you know, these films that blew me away. So I was 16, and slowly I thought like, oh, that may be something I'm interested in. Then I had a short on-stage life as well, but it wasn't theater, it was music. I was in a band, and I seriously believed that that this could be an option. I mean, looking back, I just recently found some sound files, horrific, because I wrote the lyrics, and it's like, oh God, it's pathetic. I don't even recognize myself in that. So, but that was a short period when I thought like, maybe music, because we had a bit of success. We had a little fan club, and then, but no, that didn't work out. And so I finished school, and then again, I was about to think maybe I apply for the Kunsthochschule für mich. It's like a film school in Cologne, and still wasn't sure. And then the project The White Noise came along by a crazy Austrian director called Hans Weingartner. And the concept of it intrigued me right away, because it wasn't a normal script. It was like a huge Bible, and invited you to improvise a lot. So there was some guidance, there was a guideline, but it just offered you the absolute freedom of exploring that story and that character totally by yourself. Unfortunately, I've never had such an experience again. At this time, it was very much. Dogma was very en vogue, so he was very influenced by that. We shot on these little, mini cams, but that was an incredible fulfillment creatively. But I had to play a young schizophrenic, a young guy who discovers that he has this disease. It breaks out, and so this is such a complex disease that you cannot possibly fathom. So I knew that I can only aim for an approach as much as I possibly can. So I spent time with the person the whole story was based on, a guy living with schizophrenia, and he was telling me about the voices he heard simultaneously. We went hiking to Austria. It's unforgettable moments for me, but he was so clear about trying to describe to me as a healthy person how it remotely feels like. And then I started to explore also my own madness, which I think was very important. So I entered that project and actually pretty much method-like didn't get out of it. So I went to the street, started talking to myself, started following people just to see, what happens what do you have to do to be considered as, crazy, as people say. And so, and it was the only time that, because when actors say they have such a hard time getting out of a part, I never really had that much. But in this case, I was quite in another zone doing that film. But the fact that you don't know anymore if the light is red, if you are being filmed or not, was so refreshing because you were constantly acting. And yeah, a very unconventional, very experimental way of working, but it was worth it.
Il y a cette scène justement dans ce film qui m'intéresse beaucoup, quand vous parlez un peu de vos grandes références, il y a cette scène où le personnage amène son date au cinéma pour aller voir Taxi Driver et lui communique son amour pour Robert De Niro. Et c'est une scène que je trouve assez intéressante parce qu'on voit vraiment toute la colère du personnage à ce moment-là qu'on lui interdit d'aller dans la salle.
Yeah.
Et justement, je me demandais, est-ce que, les références par rapport à Robert De Niro, est-ce que à ce moment-là, dans ce premier film, vous avez déjà des envies justement d'aller plus loin que l'Allemagne, d'aller vers quelque chose d'un peu plus international, vous étiez beaucoup plus intéressé par le cinéma américain, ou est-ce que c'était...
No, America was always too far and too big. I mean, that was not a dream that I started dreaming of when I started. No, it was on the list of my father, all the new Hollywood films. Obviously Taxi Driver and Midnight Cowboy and Dog Day Afternoon. I mean, these were the films that we all and that I, was so inspired by. And films with Willem, Platoon, etc., etc. So. No, that was not something I dreamt of. Funnily, that scene was very complicated for me because the woman selling me the ticket for the cinema was the woman who, when I did these radio plays, recommended me to an agency and to directors working for television and cinema. So it's thanks to her that I ended up doing this, partly. So to scream at her, I cannot do it here now. I mean, the most gross, vulgar, insults you can imagine. I had to scream at her, so I really had a hard time doing that. And on top of that, the date I have is my best friend, famous theater and film actress Katharina Schüttler, that I also worked, we worked twice together. So this is also a scene that I will never forget.
Du coup, vous avez ensuite fait Good Will Hunting, vous avez joué dans Good Will Hunting.
Non.
Qui a eu un
Goodbye Lenin.
Pardon.
Good Will Hunting.
Pardon, j'ai confondu.
No, but that's fine.
Goodbye Lenin, qui a été un succès énorme aussi à l'international. Comment ça s'est passé, ce passage justement à d'un coup beaucoup de visibilité internationale, alors qu'avant...
Yeah, that was quite incredible, because the shoot was so problematic. And then in Germany, when we shot this film, the budget was quite moderate, and we felt that the story is pretty good and it works, and it's a nice, charming, very, well-written script, but nobody thought it would have that much of a success, even not in Germany, It was seen as an art house, small art house film, but it hit a nerve, extremely so, and so it worked not only in the western but also in the eastern part of Germany, because we were very nervous how would the Eastern Germans react to that kind of a story. And more surprisingly, I remember when the director called me and said, "Imagine the headlines in Le Monde. The Germans are funny, It's like and even more so with the English, Believe it or not, we saw a funny German movie. It seems like a paradox, but we were overwhelmed. And for me, it changed drastically, And it put me on. It put me really on the map. It allowed me then to work abroad, and I mean in Germany, it then only later became a little bit of a curse. And I don't want to complain now because it was mainly an incredible gift to have done this film that I'm still so fond of. But it became a little bit of a curse because in Germany, or probably in other countries as well, if something is so successful, they put you in that box, you know? So I was seen as the nicest guy in Germany who would help elderly people to cross the street, you know, that kind of guy, you know? And another friend of mine is a great German actor, August Diehl. We've been very close for, 20 years. Always played the darker kind of parts. And on the street, people would be a bit afraid of him and not approach him, but I was always the one, Daddy! And so, and I like it, I still like it. I always felt that urge to be liked. I think I will be very schmoozy with you too, to be, and hope that you like me. So I enjoyed it at first, but then slowly when I got these scripts and it was always going in that direction, I started to feel a bit disappointed, because I was so typecast in Germany. So I was very glad that then eventually, surprisingly, from the outside, including America, the perspective on me was very different and unprejudiced. Yeah, it also, Tarantino for Inglourious Basterds said, you are the nice guy, and you will be in my film at first, but then you flip, and then you're not the nice guy anymore, and you shoot her, and then she shoots you, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, well, he sees these both sides. And then also Ron Howard, I said to him after the first meeting, no one in Germany would have offered me the part of Niki Lauda, who is such a calculated, cold, and arrogant guy. Nobody in Germany would have. And it was him. He said, oh, no, yeah, you can do it, even without going to an audition. So I found this very refreshing and comforting, to see that people see you differently from the outside.
Vous parlez justement de Inglourious Basterds. Il y a une scène où Shoshana, qui est jouée par Mélanie Laurent, vous dites que le héros de la nation, c'est vous. Et je voulais savoir, donc, vous, Daniel Brühl, en tant que héros de la nation allemande, comme acteur international, est-ce que vous pensez que ça vous a éloigné d'un certain cinéma allemand et que ça vous a cantonné un peu dans des rôles clichés comme le soldat nazi
I mean, as a German actor, sooner or later, you have to put on the uniform. This is like... yeah. But I thought in this case, it was really, really worth it. Because he's a genius. I mean, this guy. I remember reading this script that he had written on his, typewriter. It was wild. It was such a bold fantasy of hers, to kill Hitler in the cinema. Cinema saves the world. It was so. Wild and good that I obviously I did not I didn't have any doubts, and then he called my agency and wanted to meet me for dinner. I was one of the first ones. He didn't even have found Christoph Waltz. So he started with some parts, including me. So he wanted to have dinner in Berlin, and it was such a wonderful chat and dinner, and we had white wines, and I thought, oh great, so there's no need for an audition, no? And then at the end, when I was quite tipsy already, so see you tomorrow, 9 o'clock in the morning, and then I said, oh fuck, still have to do the audition. and then I remember that he was sitting there with Lawrence Bender, and I hate, I don't know, if you're doing auditions as future directors or actors or whatever, I learned that do that in a place that is alive. Like with Goodbye Lenin, I went to the director. He was very smart. To a director's house. So you go through the apartment, and slowly we feel at ease. They make you a tea or a coffee. You are in an environment that is alive, in a real place. These white cells where you normally do the auditions, which look like you are in the psychiatry. and as it used to be back in the day, so it probably still is, with all the DVDs of your competitors in the back, no? And then that red light of the camera, it's the only color except for the white, you know, was always giving me a very hard time. And I was never great in auditions anyways. If I was lucky, it got to 50% of the ingenious ideas I had at home when it really felt good, and then imploded, you know, in the white cell. And it was a bit like that. The script was only in English. But I knew, and Tarantino knew, that eventually we would shoot in original language for each character, so meaning German and French for me. So I had to audition that very flirtatious scene with Shoshana, and in English it didn't quite work. And then I thought, oh, in French it might work better. It's a better language to flirt with. And so and he said, yeah, but what a shame, I don't have the French translation. I said, oh, don't worry, I can do it right away. Which was a lie, because half of the words I didn't know, and I just said them in Spanish, thinking the Americans don't speak any other language, so I get away with it. So it was a funky mix of Spanish, French, but somehow it worked. So I got a call the same day that he said, like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna offer you the part.
Et vu qu'on est dans une école de cinéma, je me permets comme de rebondir. Vous nous dites alors pour un casting, quelque chose qu'il ne faut pas faire, c'est être dans une salle blanche. Mais est-ce qu'il y a d'autres choses, d'autres castings que vous avez vécu, où vous pouvez nous donner des conseils sur ce qu'il ne faut absolument pas faire en tant que réalisateur pour des comédiens comme vous à mettre en confiance pour un casting, justement, à ne pas faire ou à faire, justement?
Yeah, I guess a lot of sensibility. I guess the directors are as nervous as the actors. That was one day a precious piece of advice. Go in there and think. Just think that this other guy is as nervous as you. And that helped in a way, you know? But many actors, including me when I was young, felt such strong observation and judgment and nervousness that you have to take this away by I don't know, psychological tricks. You know, and taking your time if possible. And do not let the casting director wait the other guys that are up for the same part arriving at the same time, you know, which is like, because these fake friendly conversations with some actors, you know, that you're here, good to see you, man, good luck. Yeah, good luck. I would, as I said before, if you can, offer your own place. Like, open yourself up. Invite the actors you want to see to your own place. You know, that does a lot. That does a lot, really. That helps a lot to make you feel more comfortable when you're nervous.
Pour parler du coup de réalisation, vous avez réalisé du coup Next Door en 2020 et vous jouez dedans aussi. Comment on prépare justement un rôle où on va, un rôle où on réalise le film, où on sait qu'on va devoir se voir devant la caméra?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, at the very beginning, it was not my plan to be in the film. The original idea I had was an encounter between two men coming from different worlds but living in the same place. It ended up being in Berlin between two neighbors, one from the east, one from the west, one a privileged, you know, successful man, and the other one a guy who feels betrayed by life, who was, you know, who got lost in life and is desperate and angry and sad. And so I thought at first of someone representing the successful gentrifier as, you know, a successful architect or a politician or whatever. But then I thought, it's my first film. The first film should always be very personal. I think you should know, and that was also an advice that I got from many directors, you should be in a world that you know well, and, you know, deal with characters that you know well. And that's what then brought me to the idea of you know, bringing in an actor. And then the next step was like, well, why don't I do it myself and you know, drop my pants, as we say in Germany, and make a bit self-deprecating fun of myself. So that's how it started. Because all the people I met, actors who had done that step and directed, some of them, most of them told me, oh, it's great that you're doing your film, but don't star in it. And I knew, Gael García Bernal, the great actor, told me that, and I don't know who else. And I got it, I understood it, It's challenging enough to make your debut film, so you should totally focus on that and not have that double function of acting in it. But once that I did it then, it actually embedded me more in the whole process. It actually helped me to always know where we are at with the story by acting in it. It just was like an anchor. Like it gave me more safety. Weirdly, the only thing I couldn't judge was my own acting. So that was very important to find some allies, which I found with the DOP and the assistant director, and said, like, we need total honesty, because again, I'm a debut filmmaker, so I will raise a lot of questions that may sound stupid. You would have laughed probably if you would have seen me, because but that's the joyful experience, You don't pretend that you are the captain of the ship. You say, and nobody doubted my vision and my authority, but it was a very democratic, beautiful collaboration where everybody brought in his expertise, including telling me, well, that was really shit. I think you have to do it again. And at first I took it very personally. What? No, that wasn't good. But it was for the benefit of the film, and they were right. So if my performance was not good, I was always willing to do it again. And when in case you should do it also one day, that you make a film and you want to decide to star in it as well, don't be too afraid of it. This is my personal experience. Because if it's well written, and I had just a masterful writer, he's one of the best writers and playwrights we have in Germany and Austria, Daniel Brühl, who wrote the scenario. I couldn't have done the film without him. The dialogues was so sharp and good, and the actor, Peter Kurt, who is one of our gigantic actors in Germany, was so good that I never had, not a single second, the moment that I feared that while he was acting, I would already judge him as a director and then be out of the scene. But that did not happen. I was in the scene as an actor, and to not break it up, I decided to always shoot a couple of takes back to back. And then that was stopped. Then I went to the tent, had a look at it, and then I started directing. But while I was doing it with him, I didn't have that problem. And I think also the whole concept of it, maybe because, sometimes I regretted not having had more experience in theater. It was so inspiring what Willem was telling, that I decided to do a very theatrical film. It's like a huis clos, it's a Kammerspiel, it's actually like a theater play. And funnily, they will bring it to the stage in the Burgtheater in the famous in Vienna. And it's such a honoring feeling that my little idea that I once had in Barcelona, like 15 years ago, is finally will make it. So it's the other way around. Movie first and then theater. I think very often it's the other way around. And I was asked if I want to do 3 functions of it, which I'm still considering if it's a good idea or not. But that concept of a Kammerspiel, of a huis clos, gave me a lot of comfort and also, again, safety as a director, because I knew I want to focus on something that I know a little about, is just acting with actors and like really focusing on the characters and not be dealing with logistical nightmares, as in thousands of extras or a period film or action scenes or whatnot, So to really be in a very intimate a world. And then again, the problem with the writing was, how do you keep it entertaining so that you don't get bored after 20 minutes being stuck in a bar in East Berlin, you know, where everybody's like, oh. So that's why I needed an ingenious playwright like Daniel Kehlmann, who, you know, always turned the screw. And we were watching a lot of Kammerspiels, you know. I always liked that genre, these films, yeah, from Hitchcock, Sidney Lumet, Carnage, Polanski. There's another great two-hander. I forgot the name. In German, it's Verhör with Lino Ventura and Michel Serrault. And yes, yeah. In Germany, we always have these weird titles. And Romy Schneider, no, in a little part, yeah. So, and I was always very impressed when that works out, that it's so limited and it's just about the dialogue, it's just about the characters in it, and it can be as exciting as the most megalomaniac action film.
Et justement, par rapport à l'écriture de ce film, vous avez dit que vous aviez un scénariste qui était là avec vous, mais en même temps, est-ce que vous, à votre expérience d'acteur, vous a aussi beaucoup aidé à écrire les personnages, enfin à participer du coup à l'écriture de ces personnages, et comment du coup? Est-ce que c'est
Yeah, I mean, generally, I have to say it was the most fulfilling experience, this whole thing, you know, that I ever had. It starts with an idea that you have, you know, and I had many ideas, I'm sure you too, and you are sitting that night writing some incredibly smart stuff, and usually the day after you look at it again and think like, all right, maybe it's not that great, you know? Or a week or a month or a year later, and then and then you lose faith. It just doesn't, there's not enough to it. So that is already a wonderful feeling if for years and years you still believe in a certain idea that you have and you think there is something there. It just depends on how you do it and who you can attract with it. But you never lose the belief that there is something there, and that's what I really felt. And then I couldn't write when I was looking at what I'd written in Spanish in Barcelona back in the days. It was absolutely terrible. Then I ended up doing it in Germany 12 years later, because finally I had a structure. I had joined a production company. There were people willing to pay for it and do it, and I still couldn't write. So I was thinking of Daniel Kehlmann, because we had become friends, and I thought I just gonna go for it. I mean, let's just call the most famous writer we have, or one of them, and ask him if he wants to listen to my great idea. And so we met for a coffee, and I said, I have nothing to lose. Yeah, I think I made a joke to start with. He said, wow, first film, what is it? And I said, I want to do Magellan, based on the book from Stefan Zweig, you know. And he said, what? First film, are you sure? I said, no, I'm joking. No, it's a very little idea, two neighbors, blah, blah, blah. So I pitched it, and he engaged after 5 minutes. Said, this is something for him. He understands what I want to do. After a couple of weeks, I had the first draft, in incredible speed, the first draft, which was already wonderful, in my mailbox. And that was the last reassuring moment when I really had the confirmation there is a film there. But then he said, you know what, we're going to write this together. And I said, are you sure? Because how can I possibly contribute? I mean, you are the mastermind, you're the incredible writer and head. And he said, no. There's many things I do not know. So sit next to me in my office. And whenever there was an impasse, a tricky moment, he asked me to throw in unfiltered ideas. And very quickly he said, oh no, that's shit, oh that's boring, oh this is good. This is good. And so I can really say proudly so that, you know, I shaped the script. He has written the script. But a lot of it that came to my mind, not only from the beginning, but in that whole process made it into the film, including sometimes important turning points that we were really looking for a long while, you know. Like when we were really getting stuck and didn't know what to do. Sometimes it was me who then had these eureka moments of thinking, what about if we do this and that. So I'm very thankful that he invited me to be a collaborator for him in the writing process.
Juste peut-être pour revenir par rapport au jeu, est-ce que le fait d'avoir participé du coup pour la première fois au montage du film, est-ce que de vous voir, donc vous avez dit dans une interview que vous étiez, vous trouvez que ça pouvait être assez dur de se voir aussi longtemps pendant le montage, ça pouvait être gênant que vous voyez quand vous étiez bon ou pas bon, mais est-ce que du coup c'était une expérience qui vous a énormément apporté sur votre perception sur la perception de votre propre rôle?
Oui.
Enfin, de votre jeu, je veux dire, en général.
Oui. Non, c'était une horreur. De se voir, because I haven't watched any film I did more than 3 times, max. Sometimes, in one case, I haven't even seen the film. And normally just once, twice, or 3 times, because I still, just don't enjoy. I enjoy doing this, but not looking at the final result, or at least not at me. And after the 3rd time, you then look at the whole canvas and the other actors. The first time you're just obsessed by your nose or your strange voice or whatever it is. So I had to spend a lot of time with me, and I perfectly understood why actors shouldn't be in the editing room. Because in these moments when I thought, like, that was actually good. This was one of the moments that I was really good. And that's, I'm sure you have discovered or will discover, that's the fascination of cinema, and then of montage, and then it's like making the perfect libretto, and then the concert then is being made in the editing room. And whatever seemed so magic on the day, acting the scene and doing it might well not work in the editing room because it doesn't fit in the whole, structure and flow and so. And other things that you thought were absolutely miserable end up being quite okay. So that's that always that factor of something being so unpredictable, I think, is also part of the magic, which I found so fascinating. And I always wanted to experience the editing and then the mixing. I had read this book, which I still highly recommend, is this beautiful book of Walter Murch with Entier, these conversations, the famous editor and sound editor who saved so many films, the Apocalypse Now and the Godfather and etc. So what he was saying about the incredible range of possibilities in the editing, but also by how a scene can change with the most subtle of sounds when you add them. So that in the mixing I found absolutely mind-blowing. What happens when you hear in the background a church bell, as he describes in one case for the English Patient, I think it was, and what, so in a Kammerspiel where there was so, we felt so, in this very closed room, also to keep it entertaining, we needed to find some extra layers sound-wise. So that was a field where I explored and learned so much.
Alors on va maintenant passer aux questions du public. Alors d'abord les questions des internautes.
Can you hear me? Yes. Hi, we have questions from people online. I'm going to read you some of them. So Lily asks you, what are your wishes and goals for the future of your career?
I was talking to Willem yesterday. What you see, this man is so wonderful and complete. I mean, it's like, and the passion you see in his eyes, as we just witnessed that, that he still has for that, Oh God, I wish I will have it as well. That hunger. I mean, I have it, but sometimes you hit points. I guess it has to do with my midlife crisis, the first one that I have right now. No, where things change in life. Life becomes more complex, and also after having done my first film, I get more demanding and picky. I was more ready to jump into something that I clearly saw the risk of failing. And also, I don't want to lose that too much, And I find now that I'm it's harder to be convinced by something and convince yourself, but you have to do that, and you constantly have to listen to your moral compass also, and to lower the outside voices that you constantly have, that constant judgment and expectations that you also, and just try to really listen deep down what you really want to do. I think my goal, if they let me, because it wasn't a traumatic experience, it was quite the opposite. I'm again working with Daniel Kehlmann on a potential second film. So it would be an absolute dream if they let me do another one, because I wouldn't consider myself a filmmaker. I just did one film, and hopefully I do another one, and then we'll see, step by step. And parts, which, because I still see myself mainly as an actor, I want to hopefully be able to go on challenging myself. For now, I'm thankful that I'm sitting here and get an invitation like this, because it means that I'm still alive, and you get a certain kind of recognition, and you have the privilege of still being able to work, which is a lot. After I started when I was 15, and so I'm still around, and that's something.
Est-ce qu'on enchaîne avec une deuxième question des internautes directement?
Yes. Alexandre asks you, how did your very first casting go? Your very first casting.
Oh, terrible. An absolute nightmare. It was a terrible film. I was so glad when I saw it. It's always like when you think like you didn't get it, but then it turns out being shit. You think like, yeah. It was so horrible. I think I had to look a bit. It was said in the script that I had to look a bit darker tanned, and so I went to a tan studio, which in Cologne, but my skin is very white, so I came out like a burning tomato. So I looked sick. And it didn't go away for a couple of days. So if I would see the images now, that already was grotesque, and it was so miserable, because the director said, "Oh God, he went for far too long to the tan studio. His skin is gonna peel off, and just it is, and also performance-wise." But the script was so cheesy. I should have seen it, but I was very, very young. I was like 15. Yeah.
And you're very lucky, because we found the images and we got
Oh God. Oh God.
Oh, more seriously, we got a question in the public over there.
Oui, bonjour Daniel. Ici, nous sommes dans un festival qui s'appelle Rencontres du 7e art. Vous avez participé aussi à d'autres festivals. Je voudrais savoir, lors de toutes ces rencontres avec d'autres metteurs en scène, d'autres scénaristes, d'autres réalisateurs, si ça aboutit à des projets de films de temps en temps.
If festivals, yeah. Well,
Maybe.
It's it is important to go to festivals. Yeah. Also, networking-wise, being, and sometimes it's not necessarily a script that you're being given, but it's nourishing you and getting inspired. So that's why I mainly do it, because I learn. And it's in this job, you never stop doing so. So it's always, I try to absorb as much as I can. I very much enjoyed the couple of times when I was invited to a jury in Berlin and Marrakesh, and last time in Zurich. Always with people far wiser than me, and then I was just these conversations, and just the fact to consume so much cinema during these 10 days, and having to look at it entirely, intensely, because it's, as a jury member, it's not enough to say I liked it or did not like it. You really have to, analyze, get into the films, take it seriously, and then also get into arguments with different opinions. I learned so much by it, and sometimes I kept up the relationships that I met, and I think in one or two occasions, yeah, really some project then evolved. The nice thing here is, and I said this to the master Vincent Perez, yeah, and I think we need to a big applause then again later, because no, I think this is so admirable because it needs a lot of work, and it's so great what he has achieved in these 5 years, because this is an intimate festival. It's just about cinema, and as another director said, it's not about competition. It's not all that fuss that sometimes takes away the pleasure of going to festivals, to the big ones. It sometimes is a machine, and then you have to fulfill so many things for your particular mission, you know. Into too much press, too much, and also too much pressure, nervousness, awards, the critics, blah, 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 blah. So here it's just for the passion and the love of cinema. So, Vincent Perez.
Alors, on a une dernière question qui va venir juste ici.
Bonjour. Ouais, juste là. Déjà, merci d'être là. Et j'ai une question par rapport au film Roche. J'étais très marqué par la scène dans l'hôpital. Et je me demandais qu'est-ce que ça a apporté d'avoir rencontré Niki Lauda en vrai pour le rôle.
Yeah. Yeah, that was also one of the best experiences, as Willem also explained before, when you learn something that you're really not familiar with, and you really learn it because you have to, because you know that otherwise it will be impossible, and you cannot just pretend. You have to do more. So even the driving, you know, it took me a couple of weeks to really feel like a race driver, and in the end we were driving with 20 kilometers per hour. But it didn't matter because I felt like a race driver because I'd done it. The Austrian accent, I said to Ron Howard, it's fundamental to sound like him, because to me dialects always reflect a mentality, you know, of the people living in that place. So. And I just said I want to spend a couple of weeks and months in Vienna until I believed myself that I sound like an Austrian. Because when they found out that a German, and they don't like us, as you probably know, would play the national icon Niki Lauda, I got so much, repercussion and weird comments on the streets in Vienna. Oh, they're so incredibly arrogant. It's just, and so yeah, it was, and then ultimately, oh, is there an Austrian? Entschuldigung, nein, ihr seid die Besten. Viennese, and I love Vienna. And actually, I like no, because I like the sense of humor and the irony that also Niki Lauda had, and I wanted to capture this. So it would have sounded so wrong to speak with my dry German accent. But then I said, I have to meet this guy, and I have to spend time with him, because reading the biography, watching documentaries, doing Formula 3 courses, and learning how to speak Austrian is not enough. I don't understand that man. He's so different. He couldn't be more different to me. So there's so many things in his life that I cannot understand. So they told him, and fortunately one day at 6 a.m. I got this call, +43. I knew it was Austria. I said, oh shit. And because knowing how blunt he was, you know, and I said this many times, but it's very funny that on his first, it took 30 seconds. And he said, you want to meet me? Okay, just bring hand luggage. In case we don't like each other, you can piss off right away. I said like, this is pretty direct. And so fortunately, I had to buy some extra clothes in Vienna. We spent more time than expected. He flew me, he himself, to Sao Paulo. He was a passionate pilot of planes as well. And at the end of this, we started talking about death, about fear, about shame, vanity, love, everything, that really matters. And he was not renowned for being very emotional. So that was the door that then eventually opened, that made the result good, because then it also makes click. And it's funny what Willem said, because when I put on, I also had these teeth. And then I was in my hotel room. I always need to be alone, without family and without people. And I was in Vienna, going around in circles with these teeth, and started to talk like someone from Vienna. And slowly I got it with the teeth and the accent. Then the body language that he had, which was also quite specific. Then it all came together. And then the shoot was tough, because most of the times, I had pickup calls at 3 a.m. in the morning to put the makeup, the special makeup on. And then my handsome-looking peer, Chris Hemsworth, who looks like a sculpture, looks like God, showed up at 9 or 10, and with his Australian accent said, "Hi, Mike." And I could kill him, No, it's a great guy. Yeah.
Alors du coup, on arrive à la fin de cette masterclass. Est-ce que vous voulez dire un dernier mot pour conclure devant plusieurs étudiants en cinéma? Est-ce que vous avez déjà un dernier conseil à donner ou un dernier mot pour conclure cette masterclass?
Comme Willem Dafoe? Non. It would be strange if I have now a very clever thing to say after, so I decide not to say anything anymore.
Ok. Alors, je vais vous demander de faire un tonnerre d'applaudissements pour Daniel Brühl.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci. 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 C'était super. Merci beaucoup. Merci. C'est un plaisir. Merci.